Hello, I hope you're having a great day. Today we'll be watching a series called El Eternauta. A group of young women is having fun on a yacht. The girls go up to the deck to talk about their weekend plans, but their conversation is interrupted by an unusual phenomenon for such a hot country. The northern lights appear in the night sky. Juan and his friends sit at a table, shuffle a deck of cards, and start playing. In the middle of the gathering, there's a knock on the window. Vicente hands over a bottle of whiskey to make the men's game even more exciting. Suddenly, the power goes out, not just in the room, but around the entire world, apparently. But that's not the only problem. Ana, the host, sees through the window how Vicente collapses right in the street and stops breathing. The men rush to the window and see their friend's body and the white snowflakes falling. Snow that had never fallen in Buenos Aires before, especially not in summer. It's clear to everyone that something is wrong with the snow. Ana asks the men to seal every crack in the house to prevent the snow from entering. Everyone follows her instructions, except Russo, who fears his wife and children, left at home, might be in danger. He puts on a jacket and, despite his friend's pleas, goes outside. They all run to the window, hoping his plan works, but Russo collapses and dies instantly. Tension rises in the house. No one understands what's happening outside or how they're supposed to return to their homes. Suddenly, a knock at the back door breaks the silence. On the other side is a young woman begging for help, saying she's freezing. She turns out to be a delivery girl, the one who brought the whiskey. Her bike broke down, which delayed her, and she only survived thanks to a waterproof sheet she wrapped herself in. Realizing this, the men decide to take a risk and head to the garage. They take Vicente's keys from his office and try to start the cars to get home, but all the vehicles are broken. The friends help Juan build a protective suit, covering his body with waterproof clothing and giving him a gas mask. Everyone freezes in fear as they watch Juan step into the snow, but luck is on his side. The suit protects him, and he signals to his friends that everything is fine. At the house where Juan's ex-wife and daughter live, the snowfall also caught everyone off guard. A meeting in the building is abruptly interrupted by a car crashing into the glass entrance. Juan continues his journey through a city where thousands have already died. At one point, he thinks he hears someone whistling, but when he looks back, he realizes the sound is coming from an electrician who had been working on a power pole when the apocalypse began. Morning arrives, but the snow continues to fall. Ana realizes her husband hasn't slept at all, and to cheer him up, she decides to make him tea. A debate breaks out in the house about the water. Everyone is afraid to drink it, fearing it might be contaminated by the snow or by bacteria from the corpses. But the bottled water supply won't last long either. Only a few liters remain in the cabinet, and they need to ration it. Ana realizes they'll have to go to the store but must wait for Juan to return and use the gas mask. Meanwhile, Juan hears the whistle again and this time sees someone. But the man is too afraid to make contact, so he hides to avoid the stranger. As Juan searches for a shortcut, his friends are boarding up the windows of the house, fearing that looters may come and endanger everyone. While following the train tracks, Juan finds a train. There are many bodies around, but one of the cars still has survivors asking for help. Juan starts to panic, unsure of what to do with the wounded, and pleads not to be left behind. All he can do is give them a bottle of water and promise to return with help. New problems arise in the house. Due to the power outage, the gas also goes out, and soon the house will start to freeze. Everyone becomes anxious, but Alfredo finds a way to save them. He creates a homemade mask that will allow him to reach a police station and get gas masks. Finally, Juan reaches his ex-wife's building. In the stairwell, he finds many bodies. The survivors are praying and pay no attention to the visitor. In the apartment, Juan meets a stranger, but Elena, his ex-wife, explains she sent the man. She confesses that Clara is not with her and that they must go find her. Elena kicks the neighbors out so she can speak to Juan about their daughter's disappearance, but the others don't care about the family drama. They want to know how Juan managed to get out and survive. They inform Charlie, the group's leader, who is inspecting other apartments and finds one of the neighbors dead. Juan and Elena argue and blame each other, but Juan urges his ex-wife to calm down and promises to find their daughter. He plans to go to the school and get the address of the friend Clara went to visit. As Juan leaves the apartment, a crowd of neighbors surrounds him, eager to know how he survived. Charlie demands that Juan give him the gas mask, but if he does, he won't be able to search for his daughter. Juan is forced to draw a weapon to protect himself and his ex-wife. A shootout breaks out in the hallway, and a group of angry people chases Juan to take the gas mask by force. None of his friends agrees to help the fugitives, so he has to flee. Juan finds an abandoned apartment, locks the door, and asks Elena to look for waterproof clothing so they can leave. While Juan and Elena search for anything that could help them survive, Charlie and his people try to break down the door. Juan realizes they might not make it in time, so he gives Elena the gear and tells her to run to the school and find Clara's friend's address. As soon as Elena escapes, the mob bursts into the apartment, but Juan doesn't give up. He puts a plastic bag over his head to protect himself from the toxic air and breaks a window. The attackers are forced to retreat to avoid dying, giving Juan a few seconds. He jumps out the window, but his strength quickly fades. There isn't enough oxygen in the bag and he collapses, risking death from the snow. Juan loses consciousness and thinks his life is over, but when he opens his eyes, he sees his friends and Elena nearby. They manage to escape the house, get gas masks, and find a working car just in time to rescue him. The group takes Juan to a safe place, but none of them notices the fiery meteors falling from the sky to the earth. Juan and Elena are brought back to the house by their friends so they can decide what to do next. Juan asks to take the car to go look for his daughter, but Alfredo, the owner of the house, refuses, reminding him they must take care of themselves first. Looking through the window, the residents notice a stranger approaching, following the tire tracks left by the car. The men go down to the garage to meet the visitor and find out why he's come. The man in the mask turns out to be Bonito, the owner of a hardware store. He tells them there's another camp not far from there, and that people in that place need help and supplies. Alfredo once again refuses to help, but while he's talking to Bonito, one of the house residents decides to trick everyone and steal the car. Unfortunately, the thief doesn't get very far. He notices the flaming meteors and, while staring at them, crashes into a store window. Juan and Elena also leave their friends and go search for their daughter. Night falls and a snowstorm begins, so they try to find a car to reach their destination faster. They find a vehicle and try to start it, but just at that moment, a looter's car appears nearby and the couple must hide to avoid becoming their next victims. This time, Juan and Elena manage to escape, but looting is increasing all over the city. Alfredo watches crowds of raiders tearing through the streets and fears his house may be next. Juan asks his wife to check the secretary's office and find the address of the friend Clara went to visit. Meanwhile, he plans to check the garage for a working vehicle. Inga, the delivery girl, blames herself for going to work instead of sending her brother. She believes she stole his only chance to survive. To distract her, Alfredo assigns her to watch duty and heads to a nearby supermarket with another member of the group to get supplies. Juan finds a car that works and drives it to the school to pick up Elena. But at that moment, the woman hears strange noises, and while trying to find the source, ends up in the school bathroom. There, Elena finds a boy locked inside by local bullies. She doesn't realize that she unintentionally saved his life, but Juan is forced to explain it harshly. Pablo, the boy, doesn't believe the strange man and runs off, but when he sees the bodies of his friends through the window, he stops and finally listens. Juan and Alfredo realize the garage needs to be reinforced before storing food there. Otherwise, looters will find it and destroy the last survivors to get resources. To carry out the plan, the men stop at a fire station looking for tools but run into Bonito and his team, who are still resentful. Bonito tells his old friend Alfredo that they have a plan to protect the city. If Alfredo wants to be part of it, he'll have to cooperate and let people into his garage. Elena and Juan reach the house of Clara's friend, but it turns out Pablo lied. He gave his own address just to get back home. Sadly, his whole family is dead, and Elena has to stop him from joining them. Alfredo tells his wife about Benito's plan, and Ana convinces him that joining forces with others is their best option. Additionally, Alfredo manages to contact people from Argentina and discovers the toxic snow isn't limited to their area. It's falling all over the continent. Elena takes Pablo with her, but the boy has a fever. Juan must take his wife and the child to a pharmacy to find medicine and save the teen. But another woman appears who is in labor. Despite her husband's objections, Elena lets the woman in, and it turns out to be a mistake. Along with her looters, she ambushes the place, steals Juan's car keys, and locks him and Elena inside. After the looters leave, Juan asks Pablo to open the door. The boy doesn't respond to the man but obeys when Elena asks him to do it. Alfredo climbs onto the roof to adjust the antenna and pick up a signal, but when he tries to match the map with the compass, he discovers none of the compasses work. Juan, Elena, and Pablo escape from the pharmacy and continue their search for Clara. On the way, they see a car, but when Juan sees a family with a child nearby, he decides not to steal it. The road leads Juan back to the train where he previously saw survivors, but this time the car is empty. All that remains is a message written on the window. Juan takes his wife and the boy back to Alfredo's house to treat Pablo and regain strength. There, he learns that all his friends are planning to flee the city and escape to an island. Alfredo tells Juan that Earth's magnetic field has collapsed. He's convinced it's the end for everyone and that if Clara died in the snow, she might be the lucky one. A fight breaks out between the two men, and Juan realizes their paths are about to separate for good. While they argue, a young couple is enjoying a romantic moment. The boy decides to refill the gas canisters to continue their journey, but hears a crack and goes to check it out. In the next second, terror freezes in his eyes as something mysterious destroys him, and then his girlfriend along with their car. Juan's friends prepare to leave the city, completely indifferent to his problems. Still, Elena decides to help him. She remembers there's an old phone book in the trash container and they can use it to find Clara's friend's address. At the same time, Alfredo heads to the supermarket for another supply run. He contacts Ininga to check the house and discovers that Juan has left again to search for his daughter. Ashamed, Alfredo decides to go help his friend. He admits he's not ready to betray a 40-year friendship because of a snowstorm. On the way, Alfredo explains to Juan why he wanted to escape to the island. In his view, if Earth's poles have collapsed, there's no hope of survival, but it might still be worth trying to hide on the island. More questions arise when the men discover a pile of abandoned cars under a bridge. They get out to examine the anomaly more closely, but at that moment military vehicles appear and order them to leave the restricted area. Juan tells his friend to return home while he follows the soldiers to find out what is being hidden from civilians. But Alfredo's curiosity doesn't let him go. He follows them, but as soon as the soldiers see his car, they open fire. It's intense, and something even more terrifying appears on the bridge. As Alfredo speeds up to escape, the car flips and lands on its roof. At that very moment, strange creatures appear on the street. They look like giant insects. They attack the soldiers and begin chasing Alfredo and Juan. The men manage to find shelter and now try to figure out how to get back home. Juan decides to explore the area, assess the threat level, and determine their location. They see a rifle left behind by the soldiers. Now they have a weapon, but when they see a giant insect with a human wrapped in a cocoon, it becomes clear the rifle won't be much help. For some reason, Juan opens fire and kills one of the insects, but then hundreds more appear, putting the men in grave danger. Suddenly, someone appears behind them, signaling Juan and Alfredo to follow him to safety. The strangers throw Molotov cocktails at the insects to buy time. The mysterious man leads the two to a church, but the insects find their way in as well. The newcomers remove their masks, revealing two young men, Corgo and Mickey. They take Juan and Alfredo to their camp where several dozen people are hiding. The leader of the group, a nun, brings the men to the roof and shows them the burning meteors falling from the sky. It is these flaming lights that are bringing the insects to Earth. Juan slips outside and is horrified by what he sees: thousands of insects. He realizes the people inside won't last long and returns to lead them to safety. The group creates improvised protective clothing that will allow them to run to a nearby vehicle. Only one elderly man decides to stay behind, refusing to abandon his frail wife. Under the cover of night, the group leaves the church and tries to move through the streets unnoticed. Their first shelter is an overturned bus. While most hide inside, Juan finds a wall that could help them reach the other side. A baby on the bus starts to cry, drawing the insects' attention. They surround the bus and prepare to attack, but the man who stayed behind rings the church bell to distract the monsters. As the fugitives move through the tunnel, the old man and his wife share one last cigarette and give their lives by blowing up the church along with the aliens. Juan's team finds a working vehicle, and as everyone climbs into the truck, Juan has to shoot at the insects. At the last second, the hero jumps onto the truck, and as they drive away, he sees the church burning in the distance. In the city center, Juan and Alfredo say goodbye to their new friends and rush back home to learn the fate of their loved ones and continue the search for Clara. But they are met with good news. Clara is already there and found her family on her own. While Juan and Elena spend time with their daughter, the others prepare the vehicle for the trip to the island. But a group of strangers appears in the garage, and one of them offers Alfredo a tempting deal. He's willing to trade a motorhome in exchange for permission to take over Alfredo's house and garage. Juan and Elena decide to go to the island with the rest of the group. Juan takes Clara to the motorhome, and the group gets ready to leave. But something unsettles Alfredo. He sees the clothes Clara was wearing and suspects she had been on his boat. The dream of sailing to the island and reaching safety is shattered the moment the group arrives at the dock. The waterline had long since receded, and they need to find another place to rest and come up with a new plan. The group stops at a surviving shopping mall. There, Juan runs into friends from the church who kindly invite the newcomers to stay. While everyone begins to relax, Clara suddenly has a seizure. Nothing like this had ever happened before, and Juan suspects it may be related to the wound on her head. Meanwhile, Alfredo finds evidence that the girl had indeed been on his boat, but Clara doesn't remember. In the morning, Juan hears people screaming and follows the crowd outside. The snowfall has stopped, the sky is bright, and no one is dying from exposure, even without a mask. The first to step into the snow suffers no effects, and when nothing happens to him, the others follow. Only one person is missing from the crowd: Lucas, one of Alfredo's friends. As the men search for him, a gang of armed attackers storms the mall. To save his friends, Juan bravely faces the killers and defeats them one by one. Lucas reappears with the military but cannot explain exactly how he found them. Juan finds this suspicious but chooses to trust them and helps a wounded boy. The others also leave with the soldiers. Seeing that the river still holds water, the group regains hope of reaching the island. None of them realizes that the city is still plagued by insects, though not everyone is in danger. Juan, like the rest of his friends, now lives on a military base where they are being trained to fight the insects so the city can return to normal life. One day, the base commander calls Alfredo and asks him to repair an old radio that could be their only way to contact the outside world. Even with time, Juan can't stop thinking about the woman who opened fire in the mall. He recognized her by her pendant. Shortly before the catastrophe, they had met by chance in a store, and she didn't seem like a criminal at all. More trucks arrive at the military base bringing survivors. Alfredo sees his old neighbor Roberto and runs to him, hoping to hear that the house survived. But Roberto acts strangely and says no one else made it out alive. Juan insists they should leave and head to the island as they had planned, but the others disagree. They believe the base is the only safe place. That night, two strangers approach Juan and ask him to convince Alfredo to leave the base with them. They plan to hijack a locomotive that could be useful to the military. The next day, the group succeeds in carrying out their plan. They bring the locomotive to the city tracks and head straight into the insect nest, breaking through the rubble that divides the city in two. The impact scatters cars and monsters, clearing the path. The mission group celebrates as they return to the city, but the final stretch of the journey must be made on foot. The rails were destroyed by someone or something. The group finds an abandoned military plane, but there are no survivors on board. In fact, they see no insects, as if they had never existed in that part of the city. But the biggest surprise comes when they encounter a crowd of strangers behaving oddly. Using the radio Alfredo repaired, the base manages to connect with the outside world and learns there are other survivors. But the joy is short-lived. When the heroes go up to the roof, they see a strange glow in the distance, and it doesn't look promising. Juan asks the commander to send people to investigate, but the request is denied. It's too dangerous, especially since the team that found the plane has not returned. To pass the time, Juan and his friends decide to play cards, like in the old days. But this time, something strange happens. Lucas, unable to bear the loss, stabs his best friend with a knife. While Alfredo helps the wounded man, Juan chases Lucas, following him to the roof but failing to talk him down. Lucas mutters nonsense and then jumps. Juan and Alfredo are unable to recover the body. Hundreds of armed people suddenly appear at the base, looking like zombies. The men are forced to carry their wounded friend and run toward the locomotive, jumping aboard seconds before the zombified horde reaches them. On the way, Juan decides to jump off the train to look for the rest of the group. Along with his companion, he moves carefully, sneaking toward the source of the gunfire. The men find a military base that looks almost identical to theirs, but here people are working with the insects, and everyone seems zombified. Thousands of civilians are training and marching in formation, obeying the aliens' orders. Among them is Clara. At the front of everyone stands a strange creature glowing blue. This being is the true enemy. With strange hands and a melody, the first season comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed the video.